I'm 80 years old, and 6 months ago, I lost the person who knew me better than anyone else in this world. His name was Tom, and we were friends for 57 years. When he died, it felt like someone had erased half of my life story, because Tom was the only person left who remembered all of it. The jokes we made in our 20s, the stupid mistakes we laughed about for decades, the quiet moments that meant everything, all of that lived in his memory, and now it's gone. I want to tell you about Tom, about what real friendship actually means, and about what I wish I'd understood sooner. We met in 1967 at a printing shop on the south side of Chicago. I was 23, fresh out of a failed attempt at college, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with my life. Tom started the same week I did. We were both terrified of those massive printing machines, both trying not to look incompetent in front of the supervisor, who seemed to enjoy watching new guys squirm. That first day, we worked an 8-hour shift standing next to each other, and I think we exchanged maybe 5 sentences total. But when the shift ended, and we walked out into the parking lot, Tom turned to me and said, "You want to grab a beer?" I almost said no. I was tired, my feet hurt, and I didn't really feel like making small talk with a stranger, but something made me say yes. We went to a bar 2 blocks away, ordered cheap beer, and talked for 3 hours about nothing important. Where we grew up, what music we liked, whether the Cubs would ever win a World Series, normal stuff. But by the end of that night, I knew I'd found something rare. Tom was easy to talk to. He didn't try to impress me or prove anything. He just showed up as himself. And somehow that made it easier for me to do the same. That's how it started. 2 guys having a beer after work. But it became a routine. Every Friday, we'd go to that same bar. Then Tom met Linda in 1969, and I was his best man at their wedding. I met Carol in 1970, and Tom stood next to me at mine. Our wives became friends, and suddenly, our Friday nights turned into dinner at each other's houses, cards, cheap wine, talking until midnight about whatever was on our minds. I remember thinking how lucky we were, but I didn't really understand it yet. I thought everyone had friendships like this. The years moved fast after that. Tom and I kept working at the print shop together, and we fell into this rhythm where we didn't need to talk much to understand each other. We could communicate with a look or a shrug. When something went wrong with a machine, we'd figure it out together without having to discuss it. When the supervisor was in a bad mood, we'd cover for each other. It sounds simple, but that's what friendship is at its core, 2 people moving through life in sync, making each other's burdens lighter without even thinking about it. In 1979, the print shop closed down. The owner couldn't compete with the bigger operations moving into the area, and one day he just told us it was over. I found work at another shop across town. Tom ended up taking a job with the city, doing maintenance work in public buildings. We didn't see each other every day anymore, and I remember worrying that the friendship might fade. That's what happens to most work friendships, right? You promise to stay in touch, but life gets busy, and eventually, you're just 2 people who used to know each other. But Tom and I kept showing up. We kept our Friday dinners. We still called when something important happened. The friendship didn't fade because neither of us let it. In 1985, my father died of a heart attack. He was 62, which seemed old to me then, but seems impossibly young now. I was devastated. My dad and I had a complicated relationship, lots of arguments, lots of things left unsaid, and suddenly he was gone, and I'd never get to fix any of it. At the funeral, I stood there feeling completely hollow, and Tom came and stood next to me. He didn't say anything profound. He didn't try to make me feel better with empty platitudes about how my dad was in a better place. He just put his hand on my shoulder and stood there. And somehow, that was exactly what I needed. He showed me that friendship isn't about having the right words. It's about being present when words don't exist. Tom's son got into serious trouble in 1992. He'd gotten mixed up with drugs, made some bad choices, and ended up serving time. Tom was destroyed by it. He blamed himself, convinced he'd failed as a father. I'd go to his house and find him sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. So I did what he'd done for me. I showed up. I didn't try to fix it or tell him it would be okay. I just sat with him. Sometimes we'd talk. Sometimes we'd sit in silence for an hour. It didn't matter. What mattered was that he wasn't alone. Here's something I learned during that time. Real friendship means witnessing each other's struggles without trying to erase them. We live in a world where everyone wants to fix everything, where we're uncomfortable with sadness and hardship. But Tom and I learned to just sit with the difficult moments. His son eventually turned things around and became a good father to his own kids. But during those challenging years, Tom needed someone who wouldn't judge him or tell him to just move past it. He needed someone who would stay with him until he was ready to find his way forward. When I lost Carol in 2008, I felt completely shattered. An illness took her in 8 months, from diagnosis to the end. I was 64 years old, and suddenly the person I'd built my entire adult life around was no longer here. My kids tried to help, but they had their own families, their own responsibilities. They'd visit for a few hours and then leave, and I'd be alone in a house that felt empty of life. Tom showed up every single day for that first month. He'd bring food I couldn't touch, sit in the chair across from me, and just be there. Some days I'd let my emotions out. Some days I'd express frustration about how unfair everything was. Some days I'd just sit in silence, too exhausted to feel anything. Tom never once told me I needed to move on or that time would make things easier. He just let me process everything at my own pace. After about 3 months, I stopped leaving the house. I'd wake up, sit in my recliner, stare at the TV without really watching it, and wait for the day to end. Tom wouldn't let me stay in that dark place. He'd show up at my door, ignore my resistance, and take me out for lunch. "Come on, Bob," he'd say. "The world's still turning. Might as well see some of it." I'd get frustrated with him sometimes. Tell him to leave me be. But he never listened. He kept showing up because he knew that's what I needed, even when I didn't realize it myself. When I lost Linda in 2013, I was the one who got the call at 3 in the morning. Tom's voice on the other end, barely able to speak, a sudden heart event. She was gone before help could arrive. I drove to his house and found him sitting at the kitchen table in the dark, completely still. I sat down next to him, and we stayed like that for hours. I didn't tell him I understood, even though I did. I didn't tell him things would improve, even though I knew they eventually would. I just sat there, and that was enough, because he taught me that's what friendship is, showing up when there's nothing else to offer. After losing Linda, Tom and I became even closer. We started meeting for breakfast twice a week at the same diner we'd been going to for 20 years. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 7:30, same booth by the window. We'd order the same thing every time. Tom would get eggs and bacon, I'd get pancakes and coffee. We'd read the newspaper, talk about the Cubs, complain about our aching joints. Nothing profound, nothing life-changing, just 2 old men having breakfast. But those mornings became the most important part of my week. They gave me structure. They gave me something to look forward to. They reminded me that I wasn't alone. As we got older, we started talking more about the past, remembering the young men we used to be, the mistakes we made, the things we wish we'd done differently. Tom would tell stories about his early years with Linda, and I'd remember things about Carol I hadn't thought about in years. We'd laugh about the silly disagreements we had when we were younger, the way we thought we knew everything when we actually knew nothing. It felt like we were preserving our lives in memory, making sure someone remembered all of it before it faded away. Last year, Tom started having memory difficulties. Little things at first. He'd repeat a story he'd just told me, or forget why he'd called. Then, it got worse. His daughter took him to the doctor, and they confirmed what we already suspected: cognitive decline. Early stages, but progressing. Tom was deeply concerned. "I don't want to lose myself, Bob," he told me. "I don't want to forget who I am." I held his hand and told him we'd face it together, the same way we'd faced everything else. But I was worried too, because I understood what lay ahead. The decline happened faster than anyone expected. Within 6 months, Tom was having more difficult days than good ones. Some mornings I'd show up and he'd know exactly who I was, and we'd have breakfast like always. Other mornings, he'd look at me without any recognition. Those were the hardest days. Sitting across from someone who's been your best friend for 57 years and seeing blank confusion in their eyes. But I kept showing up. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, I'd go to his house, make breakfast, and sit with him. Even when he didn't remember my name, I was there. 6 months ago, Tom had a massive stroke. He was in the hospital for 2 days, barely conscious. I sat next to his bed, held his hand, and talked to him about all the things we'd done together. I don't know if he heard me. I don't know if he understood, but I needed to say it all out loud, needed to remind him that his life mattered, that our friendship mattered. On the second day, I could tell he was letting go. I leaned close and told him it was okay, that he'd lived a good life, that I loved him. And then he was gone. I'm 80 years old now, and I've lost more people than I care to count. But losing Tom was different. Tom was the last person who remembered who I used to be. He was the keeper of all my stories, the witness to my entire adult life. When he died, it felt like losing half of myself. All those memories we shared, they're still in my head, but now I'm the only one who remembers them. There's no one left to say, "Remember when we did that stupid thing in 1974? No one left who understands the inside jokes. No one left who knew me when I was young and stupid and full of hope. The thing that haunts me most is all the time I wasted. All the Tuesday mornings I almost cancelled because I was tired. All the phone calls I didn't make because I assumed we'd talk later. All the moments I took for granted because I thought Tom would always be there. We had 57 years together, and it still wasn't enough. I still wish I'd appreciated every single moment more. I still wish I'd told him more often how much his friendship meant to me. Here's what I need you to understand, and I mean this with everything I have left. Friendship, real, deep, show up when it's hard. Friendship is rarer than you think. Most people go through life with acquaintances, with people they see occasionally, with relationships that exist on the surface. But a friend who knows your history, who's seen you at your worst and stayed anyway, who shows up without being asked, that's precious. And it requires work. It requires time. It requires choosing to show up even when you're tired or busy or would rather be doing something else. I see people today, always rushing, always busy, always putting off getting together with friends because something else seems more important. Work deadlines, family obligations, simple exhaustion. And they think they'll have time later. They think their friends will always be available, but life doesn't work that way. People die, people get sick, people move away. And one day you'll wake up and realize you're alone, and all those things that seem so important don't matter at all. If you have someone in your life who's been there through the years, call them today. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time, today. Make plans, show up, be present. Put down your phone and actually listen when they talk. Tell them you appreciate them. Tell them they matter. Because one day, one of you will be gone, and you'll be left with nothing but memories and regret for all the time you wasted. I wake up every Tuesday and Thursday morning, and for just a second, I forget. I think about heading to the diner to meet Tom. Then I remember, and the grief hits me all over again. I sit in my house alone, drinking coffee that tastes like nothing, wondering what I'm supposed to do with all this time I have left. My kids tell me to make new friends, join a senior center, stay active, but I don't want new friends. I want my friend, the one who understood me without explanation, the one who stood by me through everything. You don't replace 57 years, you just learn to carry the weight of their absence. Tom taught me how to be a better person. He taught me to show up, to listen, to sit with pain, instead of running from it. He taught me that friendship isn't about grand gestures or perfect words, it's about consistency, about being there through the mundane and the profound alike. And now that he's gone, I'm trying to honor that, not by replacing him, but by passing on what he taught me. So here's my final thought. Life is short, shorter than you think. Even when you think you understand how short it is, the people you love won't be here forever, neither will you. Don't waste the time you have. Don't put off the phone calls and the visits and the conversations. Don't assume you'll have tomorrow. Show up for the people who matter. Be present. Be grateful. And when it's your turn to sit by someone's bedside and tell them it's okay to let go, at least you'll know you didn't waste a single moment you were given together. That's what I learned from Tom. That's what 57 years of friendship taught me. And that's what I'm trying to hold on to now that he's gone.